Overnight, US Central Command released a video showing its forces dropping what it called precision munitions on underground military targets deep inside Iran. Israel says it attacked a factory which it says was involved in the production of chemical weapons. Iran says it was making medicines. The Gulf continues to be targeted too. Fuel depots at Kuwait's international airport were hit by drones, causing a huge fire. Saudi Arabia said it had intercepted 2 drones, Bahrain was also attacked, and a tanker off the coast of Qatar was hit by a missile. Gulf leaders aren't saying much right now. Their main focus is on defending their territory, but countries in the region have made it clear they want an end to the war and an end to the uncertainty that comes with this conflict. The head of Iranian Parliament's National Security Committee, Ebrahim Azizi, has used his X account to send a message to Donald Trump, telling him the Strait of Hormuz will certainly reopen, but not for you. It will be open for those who comply with the new laws of Iran. Azizi has said the 47 years of hospitality are over forever, referring to the period since Iran's 1979 revolution. Azizi added, Trump has finally achieved his dream of regime change, but in the region's maritime regime. Iran's National Security Committee has approved a plan to toll vessels crossing through the Strait of Hormuz, the semi-official Fars news agency reported on Monday. Israel's Minister of Defense has said a buffer zone will be set up inside southern Lebanon and that Israel will keep security control over a swathe of the territory even after the end of the current war against the armed group Hezbollah. Israel Katz said the area to be occupied would go up to the Litani River, about 30 kilometers from the border with Israel. The plan has drawn criticism from the UN, European nations and Canada, who called it a violation of territorial sovereignty. Katz said more than 600,000 displaced Lebanese residents would be completely prohibited from returning to that area until the safety of residents of northern Israel was guaranteed. He added that all the houses in Lebanese villages near the Israeli border would be demolished, according to the model of Rafah and Beit Hanun in Gaza. The price of Brent crude oil to be delivered in May rose by a record 64% in March, the highest monthly gain since the Gulf War in 1990. The global benchmark for oil is a contract to buy a barrel of Brent crude 1 month in the future. When this price rises, it typically pushes up fuel prices too, as oil is a key component in its production. On Wednesday, the price of Brent for June delivery was trading 1.2% higher to $105.36, £79.61. Brent's previous highest monthly gain was in 1990 during Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, which disrupted the global supply of energy and sparked fears of a broader Middle East conflict, said Alberto Bellerin from Intercapital Energy. These conditions mirror those seen in the ongoing conflict with Iran, which has driven up oil prices as markets take account for the heightened geopolitical risk, he said. Oil prices are likely to continue to rise if shipping flows remain disrupted and if the conflict does not ease, said Go Jingrong from the Singapore Management University. Meanwhile, Asian stock markets jumped this morning after President Trump said the US will leave Iran in 2 to 3 weeks. Japan's Nikkei 225 index gained by 4%, while the Kospi in South Korea rose by more than 6%. A tanker has been hit by an unknown projectile off the coast of Qatar's capital of Doha, according to the UK Maritime Trade Operations. The agency says the vessel was struck on the port side, causing damage to hull above the waterline, but all crew members were reported as safe. It adds that authorities are investigating the incident and there is no environmental impact from the incident. The attack comes a day after a tanker transporting 2 million barrels of oil from Kuwait and Saudi Arabia was hit by an Iranian drone strike when it was docked off the coast of Dubai. A fire broke out and was later extinguished, with all crew members safe and uninjured, according to local authorities. China and Pakistan have presented a 5-point plan to try and end the war in Iran, which includes an immediate ceasefire and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. The initiative was drafted after Pakistan's foreign minister flew to Beijing to ask for Chinese support for the country's efforts to negotiate an end to the war. China's foreign ministry said the two were making new efforts towards advocating for peace. China's response to the war in Iran has so far been quite muted. Beijing has a stockpile of oil and is more insulated than many other Asian countries from shortages. But there are already fears that China's industrial heartland, which forms the factory of the world, will be impacted long-term if this crisis continues. The war in Iran jeopardizes something President Xi covets: stability. Beijing needs a stable global economy if it is to continue growing and exporting goods. Now, a month into the conflict, with petrol prices continuing to climb, the Chinese government is stepping up efforts to push for a ceasefire. The Chinese government has tried the role of peacemaker in the Middle East before, with limited success. In 2023, it brokered a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which did result in a resumption of diplomatic ties. A year later, it hosted leaders from 14 Palestinian factions, which resulted in a national unity government. There are few signs anyone is responding to the plan for now, but pushing forward this initiative allows President Xi to play the role of neutral broker and peacemaker and once again stand in contrast to the leader of the other major superpower. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. is exchanging messages with Iran and that an end to the war is in sight. There are talks going on, he says. There is the potential for direct meeting at some point. We're always going to be open for that. But, he adds, President Trump is not going to allow fake negotiations to be used as a delay tactic to buy more time. While he says he doesn't want to put a timeline on it, we can see the finish line, Rubio tells Hannin during the interview. The secretary also criticizes NATO, saying the US may have to re-examine whether or not the alliance that has served this country well for a while is still serving that purpose. A few hours ago, we heard from Donald Trump at the White House. Here is a roundup of what he said. Trump told reporters the US will be leaving Iran very soon, and US military action could end as soon as 2 or 3 weeks. He says the US has achieved the goals set before airstrikes against Iran began late last month, in conjunction with Israel. He says the primary goal of curtailing Iran's ability to obtain a nuclear weapon has been reached, and the US was now finishing the job. Trump says the US now dominates Iranian skies and has also achieved regime change following the killings of many senior political and military leaders. He described the new leaders in Tehran as much less radicalized and more rational compared to their predecessors. Trump also says Iranian leaders are begging to make a deal with the US to end the war, which has previously been denied by Iran. He adds that the war could end without a deal brokered by both sides. On the war's impact on rising fuel prices, the president says they will come down as soon as the US ends its military actions. Lebanon's capital Beirut has been hit by heavy airstrikes in which Israel's military says it struck a Hezbollah commander and another senior figure. The IDF says it conducted 2 separate attacks across Beirut overnight. Smoke columns were seen rising from the Jinnah neighborhood on the outskirts of southern Beirut, while multiple heavy explosions shook parts of the city, according to security officials speaking to Reuters. A car traveling south of Beirut was hit by multiple missiles launched by an Israeli drone, Lebanese state media reported. Earlier on Tuesday, Lebanon's Ministry of Health said at least 7 people had been killed by Israeli strikes in the country's south, including a paramedic. The strikes are the latest in an escalating Israeli offensive in Lebanon, which has killed at least 1,200 people and displaced 1.2 million others. As we reported earlier, President Trump is set to provide an important update on Iran on Wednesday evening, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said. Leavitt didn't give any further information. The Israeli military has provided a statement relating to earlier strikes to a medicines manufacturer in Iran. Earlier, a factory owned by the Tawfiq Daru Research and Engineering Company was destroyed in an airstrike, prompting Iran Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi to accuse Israel of openly and unashamedly bombing pharmaceutical companies.
The IDF says the manufacturer supplied fentanyl to the organization behind Iran's nuclear weapons program, SPND, Organization of Defensive Innovation. The IDF says the factory presented itself as a civilian company, while it would conduct research and development of chemical warfare agents. Iran and Israel's statements have not been verified by independent sources. Iran has the necessary will to end the war with the United States and Israel as long as certain conditions are met, the country's president Masoud Pezeshkian said on Tuesday. The comments, which boosted markets in the US, were made in a phone call between Pezeshkian and the president of European Council and originally reported by Iranian state media. Though the markets may have seen a glimmer of hope in the comments, especially as they came from a man long seen by many in the West as a moderate, the post of president is a subordinate one in a system long run by hardline clerics. The claim there is a will to end the war anyway came with heavy caveats, namely that guarantees are put in place that there will be no return to conflict. On the face of it, that doesn't appear to change much,